My name is Emily Carter. I'm 38 and live in Seattle. I've been with Helix Dynamics for almost 7 years, a medical tech company that makes surgical implants and operating supplies. If anyone asked what I did for a living, I'd tell them it was the only thing I was good at and the only thing I still believed in. After the divorce, I threw myself into work, convinced that if I just did it well enough, everything else would somehow fall back into place. I started out in logistics, tracking supplies and shipments for major West Coast hospitals. Those first months were brutal. I remember staying at the office 3 nights in a row to fix a supply chain failure. My boss then, Mark Ellison, walked in, handed me a cup of coffee, and said, "You're someone I can rely on, Emily. Keep this up, and you'll go far." From that moment, I believed he meant it. Mark had the confidence of a mentor, a man who made every task sound like a calling, and I was young enough to believe him. Over time, I became one of the key managers in operations. I built teams, trained newcomers, and streamlined processes. My projects always hit the targets. I used to think Helix was where I'd spend the rest of my career. Mark would half joke that I was the backbone of the company, the only person he could call at 3 in the morning if the production line failed. I laughed back then, not knowing how bitter those words would sound years later. Work consumed everything. People said I lived too quietly. They were right. I didn't date, didn't go out. My 14-year-old daughter, Emma, lived with her dad in Portland and came to stay 2 weekends a month. Each time she visited, I tried to shut the laptop, cook something decent, but the phone always rang anyway. She'd just look at me, those calm, knowing eyes. "You're building something good, Mom," I'd tell her. She'd smile and say, "I just hope you're building a life for yourself, too." I nodded, but never answered. 7 years passed fast, and Helix was expanding. Henderson, the regional operations director, was retiring. Mark had hinted more than once that I was the successor. It wasn't wishful thinking. My record spoke for itself. Best performance in the company 3 years straight, internal awards, the trust of every major partner. Mark would say, "Be patient, Emily. When Henderson leaves, the seat is yours." The first week of April, I got an email from HR. Company-wide meeting. Management restructure announcement. I read it over and over, my heart pounding. This was it. I spent the night drafting notes for the speech I hoped to give the next day. It was all about the team, loyalty, and the way we'd built a transparent and reliable system together. I pictured Mark shaking my hand, my coworkers standing to applaud. In my head, it played like a perfect scene. The next morning, I wore the navy suit I'd been saving for something special. I looked at myself in the mirror, fixed my hair, and felt proud. Not arrogant, just a quiet belief that effort would finally be rewarded. I got to the office an hour early, brewed coffee, and arranged my notes. Everyone seemed excited. Lila, my closest friend at work, leaned over and whispered, "My bet's on you today." I smiled, pretending to stay calm, though my heart was racing. At 10 sharp, the meeting began. Every employee filled the main conference room. Mark stood on stage, serious but energized. He started with the usual talk about growth, vision, and innovation. My pulse quickened. Then he paused, smiled, and said the company was entering a new chapter, one that needed fresh faces in leadership. I held my breath. His eyes swept the room, pausing for a moment on me. I clenched my hands under the table. "Let me introduce," Mark said, "our new director of operations, Ryan Hale." The room fell silent. Then polite applause rippled through the crowd. I turned to Lila, who looked as stunned as I felt. A young man with neatly combed hair walked up to the podium. I recognized him, a recent hire from strategic planning, someone I'd only seen in passing. Ryan smiled confidently and shook Mark's hand. I forced my face to stay neutral, nodding with everyone else, even as it felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. When the chatter rose again, I stayed seated. Mark went on about youthful vision and blending experience with new energy. He glanced at me, smiling lightly. "Emily will assist Ryan during the transition," he said. "No one knows Helix better than she does." I heard my own voice, quiet and distant. "Understood, Mark." He nodded, as if everything made perfect sense. I don't remember the rest. When it ended, people crowded around Ryan to congratulate him. I did too, shook his hand, and said words I barely recognized as mine. Congratulations. You'll do great. He thanked me, his smile so earnest it almost made me pity him. When the room emptied, I stayed behind. My coffee had gone cold, papers scattered across the table. On the wall, the company's slogan stood out in silver letters: Leadership through Loyalty. I stared at it for a long time, then started to laugh. Not the kind of laugh that lifts the heart, but the kind that comes when you finally realize how long you've been believing the wrong people. I walked out of the conference room while the last round of applause was still echoing in my head. The hallway felt colder than usual. I went straight to my office, closed the door, and sat down as if I'd just run a marathon. On my desk lay the speech I'd spent all night preparing, the page untouched, its corner curled slightly from the steam of my coffee cup. I folded it carefully, like something fragile and precious, and slipped it into a drawer. I knew I'd never read it again. That afternoon, Mark called me to his office. He still wore his usual smile, voice calm and pleasant, as if nothing unusual had happened that morning. Emily, he said, I know today might have surprised you, but this was a strategic decision. Ryan brings a younger vision, and you bring experience. The two of you will complement each other perfectly. I listened to every word, keeping my tone steady. I understand, I said. I just hope this is what's best for the company. Of course, Mark said, tilting his head like a teacher correcting a student. I know you'll be professional. I want you to help Ryan get up to speed as fast as possible. Show him the systems, the partner network, the operational flow. No one knows that side better than you. I nodded. If that's what you want. Mark stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. I've always trusted you, Emily. Don't let emotions interfere with your work. I smiled faintly. Emotions? Don't worry, Mark. I save those for other things. As I left his office, I realized my hands were shaking. Not from anger, but from a hollow, bone-deep emptiness. 7 years. 7 years of believing that loyalty and performance meant something, that I was walking a straight path toward success. Turns out I'd just been holding the door open for someone else. That evening, I stayed late. The office was silent, lit only by the glow of my monitor reflecting off the glass walls. Outside, Seattle disappeared into mist and light rain. I looked at my reflection, faint against the skyline, and wondered, if I walked away tomorrow, would anyone notice? Would any of those people who just applauded remember I was the one keeping the gears turning? A soft knock on the door. Lila stepped in, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought I'd find you here. I took one, managed a small smile. You guessed right. She sat across from me, quiet for a moment before saying, I'm sorry, Emily. That position should have been yours. I know, I said. But clearly Mark had his reasons. That reason is named Ryan Hale. I looked up. Lila shrugged. He's Richard Hale's son. You know, Hale Medical, the company that supplies Helix with surgical materials. They've been partners for years. I didn't speak. I knew about Hale Medical, knew how profitable their contracts were. I just never thought Mark would let friendship steer a company decision. Lila sighed. He's been here 5 months, Emily. 5. Can you believe that? I let out a dry laugh. You forget where we work. Around here, anything's possible as long as you play golf with the right people. She smiled sadly. Just don't give up. You're better than all of them. I stayed long after she left. Her words echoed in my head, blending with the sound of rain against the window. I opened my laptop, pulled up the latest quarterly report, scanned the numbers, the emails, the metrics, anything to keep from sinking into the fog of pointlessness spreading inside me. The next morning, I met Ryan for the first time as my new boss. He walked into my office, looking slightly awkward but still wearing that confident smile. Hi, Emily, he said. Mark told me we'll be working closely and that you'll help me understand the system. That's right, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. We'll start this week. There's a lot you'll need to learn. I'm looking forward to it. It's an honor to work with you. He meant it. I looked at his young, earnest face and realized I couldn't hate him. Ryan wasn't the one who stole my role, at least not directly. He was just the product of a decision I couldn't undo. Later that afternoon, Mark sent me a short email. Emily, Thank you for your professionalism. I know you'll help Ryan succeed. You've always been the backbone of Helix. I read it again and again, bitterness rising in my throat. Backbone, I thought. A backbone never moves, no matter what they build on top of it. That night, I came home late as usual. The kitchen light was the only one on. I picked up my phone and saw a message from Emma. Mom, I got an A in science. I'm coming home this weekend. I stared at the little text until my vision blurred. That's amazing, sweetheart, I typed back. I'm so proud of you. I sat there, listening to the rain on the roof, thinking about how patient and bright she was. So much like me when I first joined Helix, back when I still believed that hard work was enough. I turned off my phone, took a sip of cold water, and realized, for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. 3 days after the meeting that changed everything, I officially began training Ryan. He showed up on time, laptop in hand, looking polished, like he was about to sit for an interview instead of stepping into a system he barely understood. I think we should start with the Northwest Distribution Network, right? He said, eager. I nodded, opening the operations dashboard. Right. But before you think about managing anything, you need to understand why it was designed this way in the first place. I walked him through how we built the backup warehouse system, the emergency delivery routes, and the weak points in each supplier's chain. Ryan nodded along, typing constantly, but I could tell he wasn't really processing it. He was bright, sure, but raw. And worst of all, he didn't yet know when to stop talking and start listening. So if there's a problem with the Spokane warehouse, I asked, what would you do? We'd reroute shipments from Seattle, he said quickly, if inventory's still up. And if Seattle's empty too? He paused, frowning. Maybe find a replacement vendor? Not wrong, I said, but not enough. You call the 3 hospitals waiting on supplies first and assess urgency. Then check with the partner reserve in Portland. They can back us up within 18 hours if needed. Ryan nodded slowly, and for the first time, I saw him hesitate. How do you even remember all those connections? I don't. I built the system so I wouldn't have to. What matters is knowing how to think before you act. We worked through the morning. At noon, Ryan went to lunch with Mark, and I went back to my desk. When I opened my inbox, a message from Lila popped up. Want to talk for a minute? I walked to her office, and she shut the door the second I stepped inside. You won't believe this, she said, eyes tense. Ryan just got added to the strategic decision group. What? I frowned. Yeah, the one Mark personally leads. They meet every Thursday. You're not in that group, are you? Never have been, I said. Mark claims we don't need too many voices involved right now. But Ryan's brand new, and he's in. How does that sound to you? Something cold crept down the back of my neck. I tried to stay calm. I think they can pick whoever they want. That means they don't plan to include you in the core decisions anymore, Emily. You're the one who keeps this place running, and they still shut you out. I didn't answer. I knew she was right. This wasn't about Ryan's promotion anymore. This was about Mark rebuilding his power structure, and I was being quietly pushed to the edge of it. That afternoon, I went to the Seattle warehouse to check inventory and met with Olivia, the warehouse manager I trusted most. She handed me the latest inbound report, then lowered her voice. Emily, did you hear? They say Ryan's reviewing the inventory process. I haven't heard a thing. What if they switch the whole system to Hail Tech software? I froze. Hail Tech. Subsidiary of Hale Medical, run by Ryan's father. A program that had never been tested on supply chains as complex as ours. If that rumor was true, Ryan wasn't just some young new director. That night, I called Lila. Can you check if Hailtech's in talks with IT for a contract? I don't know if I can access that level of data, she said. Just find out if negotiations are happening. If they are, then this isn't just a restructure. It's a transfer of control to the Hale family. After the call, I sat alone in the living room for a long time. Rain still fell outside. I thought of the first time Mark took me to an industry summit in Chicago, proudly introducing me as the one who keeps this machine from falling apart. I used to take pride in that, but now I saw it clearly. To him, I'd never been more than a tool, replaceable, forgettable. A message chimed on my phone. It was from Emma. Mom, you seem sad. Are you okay? I stared at the words and typed slowly. I'm trying, she replied right away. You're the strongest person I know, but you don't have to be strong alone. I gripped the phone, feeling something shift inside me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing halfway up a steep hill, and all that mattered now was choosing. Keep climbing or take a different road. The next morning, I got to the office early. Ryan wasn't in yet. Mark was upstairs in a meeting. I reopened the contract archives and found a string of emails between Mark and the Hailtech group. Vague subject lines, full of phrases like strategic integration and potential partnership. I saved everything. Not because I wanted to destroy anything, but because I needed to know whether the years I gave to Helix were being turned into profit for a family I never agreed to serve. I spent almost the entire next morning reviewing the files I'd saved. Every email thread, every contract note had one thing in common: Mark's signature and the Hale medical seal. Everything looked legitimate on paper, but if you paid attention, there were subtle edits buried in the technical descriptions: material type, source, testing standards. I used to oversee material validation back when I worked in logistics, and I knew how dangerous small changes like that could be. A minor deviation in tensile strength or bioreactivity could mean implant failure, even life-threatening complications. I called Olivia and asked her to inspect the new shipment from Hale Medical. 3 hours later, she called back, her voice trembling. Emily, you need to see this. I drove to the warehouse that afternoon. Olivia opened a crate and pulled out a few sheets of silver-white material. The surface was rougher than the standard type, almost unpolished. I ran my fingers across it. I tested it, she said, and the residual oxide levels are triple the limit. If this gets used in surgery, it could cause severe inflammation. I stayed silent for a moment, then said quietly, "Thank you. Keep this between us. Tell no one." Driving back to the office, I could feel something collapsing inside me, not just trust, but the foundation of everything I'd spent 7 years protecting. I waited until the end of the day to confront Mark. He was in his private conference room, half watching a report, half on the phone. When I walked in, he looked up, signaled for me to wait, then hung up. "What's going on, Emily? I need to talk about the new shipment from Hale Medical." "Oh, right. I already signed off on that. Is there a problem?" "A serious one," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The material isn't up to standard. I verified it. If it's used, it could cause inflammation, even device failure." Mark was silent for a few seconds, then smiled faintly. "Emily, you know what business we're in. We don't make medicine, we make materials. Nothing's perfect. There's a line between imperfect and dangerous, Mark. I can't sign off on something that might harm patients." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You sound like someone who's never had to handle corporate politics. You think I don't know what's happening? You think I don't care about safety? I think you're trading ethics for profit." The air in the room tightened. Mark studied me for a long moment, then said slowly, "Watch your words, Emily. I've been here longer than you, and I know where the line is. Sometimes silence is the smarter choice. Silence isn't smart when people can get hurt." "You're crossing a line," he said coldly. "If you can't handle the pressure, I can assign this project to someone else." "Then do it," I said. "But I won't sign." I left before he could respond. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from anger. I'd never spoken to Mark that way before. Lila's words echoed in my head. Don't trust promises too easily. I had trusted, and now I was paying for it. That night, I opened my laptop at home and began documenting everything: emails, contracts, inspection reports, and photos of the shipment. I stored them on an external drive and sent a backup to my personal email. When I finished, I realized my hands were shaking. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing or just lighting the fuse on my own downfall. The next morning, I got to work early. There was a white envelope on my desk from HR. Inside was an invitation to a mandatory mid-cycle performance review. The bold print read, "Required meeting, 3:00 p.m." I knew exactly where it came from. At the appointed time, I entered the small conference room. The HR director was there, along with someone from legal. They spoke in soft tones about recent feedback regarding workplace behavior. A few team members felt I was creating tension. They spoke in that polished corporate dialect, impossible to challenge, yet painfully transparent. We just want to ensure a positive work environment, the HR rep said. All we ask is that you stay cooperative and reduce confrontational communication with leadership. I smiled. I understand. But maybe you should start building that positive environment by making sure employees aren't pressured into doing something wrong. No one replied. When I walked out, I saw Mark standing in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes cold and warning. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. That evening, I sat in my car in the parking lot, engine off. The city was wrapped in a thin fog, streetlights glowing against the wet pavement. I thought of Emma, of what she'd said last week. You're the strongest person I know. I smiled faintly, a tired, bittersweet kind of smile. Strength doesn't mean you're never scared. It just means you keep walking, even when you know the road ahead might break you. I unlocked my phone and typed a single line into my notes. If they want me silent, they picked the wrong woman. I spent that weekend weighing every possibility. Every time I thought about blowing the whistle, the same question came back. What would happen if I did? I could lose my job. They could smear my name. They could make sure every hiring manager saw me as a problem. But if I stayed quiet, those faulty materials would still be used, and that would make me complicit. Monday morning, I walked into the office with a heaviness I couldn't shake. Ryan was at his desk, staring at his screen with a confused look. When I passed by, he called out, Emily, do you have a minute? I turned around. What is it? He lowered his voice. Do you know anything about the Hale medical shipment? I just got a complaint from Delta Care Hospital in Portland. They said the batch isn't meeting standards. There's visible corrosion. I froze. Do they email you directly? He nodded, eyes down. Mark told me to ignore it, said it was just minor feedback, but I'm not so sure. It doesn't seem normal. You're right, I said. It's not. For a moment, I just looked at him. It was the first time I'd seen uncertainty in his eyes. No trace of that confident glow from someone who thought he'd been chosen for his talent. Just the realization that he might be a pawn in someone else's game. Ryan, do you know why you were promoted? Because I'm his friend's son? Exactly. And because he needed someone easy to steer, someone who wouldn't ask questions. Ryan was silent. I sighed. You have a choice now. You can stay a part of this, or you can stand on the right side. He nodded slowly. If you need anything from me, I'll help. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure I could trust him completely. But at least for now, Ryan wasn't the enemy. Maybe he was just another person caught in a game he never really understood. That afternoon, I met Lila at our usual cafe near the office. She had dug up part of the information I'd asked for. Helix is negotiating with Hailtech to integrate their logistics software next quarter, she said. It's not public, but it's been told to prep the migration plan. And Mark's behind it? Exactly. No official contract yet, but a few engineers from Hailtech have already been hired. Internally, they're calling it the warm-up phase. I took a sip of coffee, trying to keep steady. I have proof of the faulty materials, and of Mark ignoring the hospital's complaints. But I need somewhere to send it, somewhere it can't be buried. Lila looked at me carefully. I have a friend who's an investigative reporter at the Seattle Tribune, but if you want to try the internal route first, you could submit it to the Medical Device Ethics Board. I want both, I said. One formal, one public, so they can't silence it. We spent almost 2 hours planning, breaking everything down. I'd prepared the technical report, copies of the contracts, hospital feedback, and the internal evaluations I'd submitted but were ignored. Lila would reach out to the journalist discreetly, making sure my identity stayed protected for now. That evening, when I got home, Emma was already there. She'd come back earlier than planned. I wanted to stay with you for a few days, she said softly. You don't seem okay. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small head against my chest. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just working on something important. Are you quitting your job? I froze. Why would you ask that? Emma looked at me, her intelligent eyes far too wise for her age. Because I know you. You're not happy. And you always do what's right, no matter what anyone else does. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already knew. The next day, I filed an official report with the National Medical Device Ethics Board. I attached all the evidence, every document, inspection record, and warning. They replied within 24 hours, confirming an internal investigation and assuring confidentiality. At the same time, Lila texted that the Tribune's investigative piece was underway. The journalist had verified several claims, and publication was expected early next week. I felt like I was standing on an edge. One more step, and there'd be no turning back. By Wednesday, Mark called me into his office. He threw a stack of papers on the table. "You did this?" I glanced down. It was a copy of the report I'd sent outside company channels. The ethics board had already opened an investigation and requested Helix's cooperation. "Yes," I said. "I did." Mark stood, leaning across the desk. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? I just saved this company from a class action lawsuit. You just betrayed my trust, the board's trust, and everything we built here." "No, Mark. I exposed a system that betrayed its ethics long before I did. And as for trust, you lost it the day you turned medicine into a business deal." He exhaled sharply, his voice dropping to ice. "You're finished here, Emily. Even if they don't fire you now, you won't last. You've ended your own career." "I know," I said, "and I'm fine with that." I stood and walked out without looking back. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd made the right choice. Not silence, not submission, and not letting 7 years of loyalty become an excuse to stay safe. I texted Lila, "It's begun. Time to face it." She replied with just one word: "You're not alone." I had never felt the hallway of that company so heavy beneath my feet. The looks people gave me weren't the same anymore. No greetings, no polite nods. Not hostility exactly, but a kind of tense silence that said everything. Someone had clearly spread the rumor that I'd reported the company to outside authorities. Mark didn't need to fire me. He was doing something far more effective, isolating me. I was no longer invited to strategic meetings. Project documents no longer appeared in my inbox. My internal access rights had quietly been restricted. Lila checked the system for me and confirmed it. "You're being quarantined." Ryan had changed too. We didn't speak like before. He avoided eye contact, answered in short phrases, and left meetings the second I entered the room. Maybe Mark had warned him, or maybe he was just torn between two sides. I couldn't blame him. He was too young to understand what loyalty costs when justice isn't part of the equation. I used my remaining time to finish everything I could. No one had suspended me, but no one was giving me new work either. I organized files, updated data tables, and rewrote every internal guideline for handover. Everything was done cleanly, precisely, professionally. I wasn't about to give them an excuse to say I'd sabotaged the company from within. That weekend, the story broke on the front page of the Seattle Tribune. Defective medical implants. Scandal inside Helix Unicorp. The subheading read, "Anonymous source exposes ethics violations in the supply chain. Hospitals and patients bear the cost." I read every line, feeling both relief and dread. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone at Helix would know. The article detailed everything: substandard materials, ignored hospital complaints, and a push to partner with a company personally connected to the board. Several hospitals, quoted anonymously, confirmed they'd filed complaints weeks ago without response. The report also stated that the Federal Medical Ethics Commission had opened an investigation demanding full cooperation from Helix. The media storm followed instantly. Within 24 hours, Helix became the center of a scandal it couldn't contain. I came into the office on Monday morning in silence. Everyone kept their heads down. No one spoke. But I could feel it. The story was being dissected in every hallway, every break room, every private group chat. Around 10 o'clock, I was called to a high-level meeting. Mark was there, along with 3 board members and the company lawyer. Emily, one of the board members, began. "We understand you were the one who filed the ethics report." I nodded. I did. "And is it true that you may have been the source for the press?" "I won't confirm that," I said calmly. "But I will say this. If no one speaks up, this will keep happening, and eventually, everyone will pay the price." Mark stared at me, as if trying to calculate how much I still had left to reveal. The company lawyer spoke next. We don't currently have grounds to terminate your employment, but I trust you understand that your continued presence here is no longer compatible. I understand, I said. So I'll be submitting my resignation. But before that, I'll hand over every document and instruction to make sure no one else's work is disrupted. They didn't stop me. No one asked me to reconsider. Because they knew I'd already won, not through manipulation, but through truth. I went back to my desk, opened my email, and began typing my resignation letter. Under reason, I wrote only this: I can no longer continue in an environment where professional ethics are treated as optional in pursuit of personal gain. Thank you for the years that have passed. I hit send at exactly 11:11 a.m. A small detail, but for some reason it felt right. Complete. As I packed up my things, Lila came and stood beside me. She didn't speak at first. Then she set a small box of pastries on my desk. For your first dinner as a free woman, she said quietly. I smiled. You're staying? For now. Until I can't look the other way anymore. But what you did will inspire others, Emily. You know that, right? Before I left, I printed one final note and pinned it to the department bulletin board. All updated guides, templates, and workflow files are stored in the shared for Emily transfer directory. Keep doing the right thing. This work used to mean something. I walked out of Helix Unicorp without looking back. I didn't need to. I knew what I was leaving behind. A space, yes, but also a reminder that sometimes standing up isn't about fighting. It's about clearing the way. And sometimes losing a position isn't a loss at all. It's the start of becoming whole again. That day, Seattle's sky was clear for once. No rain. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in months, I felt light, like someone finally free of the weight she'd carried half her life. I spent the next few days doing nothing at all. No emails, no news, no social media. I turned off my work phone, deleted the company apps, and erased every trace of Helix that still lingered in my life. I didn't want to hear another word about that place, not yet. Emma kept my days steady. Every morning, she made coffee for me and did her homework at the dining table. At night, we cooked together, watched movies, and shared small stories about our day. I never told her I'd left my job, but she knew. She didn't need to hear it. She only needed to look. And she understood that her mother had finally let go of something no longer worth holding on to. A week later, Lila sent me a message. You should turn on the news. Mark was on TV last night. I hesitated, then opened my laptop. There he was on the evening broadcast, gray suit, red tie, calm as always. We deeply regret the issue related to product quality, he said evenly. Helix is cooperating fully with the authorities and has suspended all transactions with the involved partner. I smiled faintly. No apology, no admission of fault, just another attempt to hold his chair. But Lila was right. I kept watching. In the special report that followed, the anchor announced that several board members had begun questioning Mark's role in approving the contracts. An emergency meeting was scheduled for the following week. The same segment included a statement from Delta Care Hospital confirming they were considering suing Helix for supplying substandard materials. I sat still for a long time, mind blank. Not because I was happy, but because I realized what I'd done wasn't just about doing the right thing. It had set something larger in motion: accountability. Systems always hide flaws behind a polished surface, but once a crack appears, what's inside will eventually show. The next morning, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. Hello, Emily. My name is Sandra Monroe, CEO of Veritas Meditech. We've been following the Helix case with great interest and would like to meet with you. I'd heard of Veritas, a small but fast-growing company known for transparency and fair workplace culture. I called the number in the email. Sandra answered after 3 rings. Emily, I'm glad you called. I'll get straight to the point. Would you be open to a conversation about an opportunity? I just left a battlefield, I said honestly. We're not looking for people who've never been hurt. We're looking for those who've walked through it and are still standing. Her words stopped me. I paused, then nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I'm listening. We met the next day. Veritas's office sat in a small glass building near Lake Union. Bright, open, nothing like the cold halls of Helix. Sandra was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp smile. She didn't waste time. "We need a director of quality control," she said. "Someone with skill and backbone. You've proven you have both." "Don't want to repeat the past," I told her. "Then help us make sure it doesn't happen again." The conversation lasted over an hour. Sandra talked about Veritas's principles: ethics first, sustainable growth, never trading integrity for profit. It sounded idealistic, but the way she spoke told me she meant every word. I didn't accept right away. I said I needed a few days to think. She nodded, patient, unhurried. That night, I sat on the balcony, watching the lights from across the lake ripple on the water. Emma brought out 2 mugs of hot cocoa and sat beside me. "What are you going to do next, Mom?" "Rest for a while." "But you're not going to stop, are you?" I looked at her and smiled. "No, I'm not." I hadn't made an official decision yet, but deep down, I already knew. It wasn't about salary, title, or reputation. It was about doing what I was good at, but this time, in a place I could trust. 2 days later, I sent Sandra an email. "I'm ready. Let's start the next conversation." That same day, an old colleague from operations at Helix called me. "Mark's been suspended," he said. "The board just finished the meeting." He stepped down quietly, but everyone knows why. I didn't feel triumphant, just light, like a door had closed softly, no slamming, no noise. And behind it, a new chapter had just begun to open. I started at Veritas Meditech on a quiet Monday morning. No fanfare, no welcome meeting, no speech about new beginnings. Sandra simply walked me to a small office beside the production floor, set an ID card and a stack of documents on the desk. "Welcome to reality," she said, then walked away. I laughed not because it was funny, but because it felt right. At Helix, every new position came with a show of flowers, cupcakes, and scripted congratulations. Here, I had a desk, a computer, and one clear expectation: do it right, do it well, no need for decoration. My first task was to audit the entire quality control process from raw materials to final shipment. Veritas's QA team had only 8 people, all young but focused. I met each of them one by one. No schedules, no hierarchy. I wanted to listen before I looked at numbers. The first 4 days were a blur of records, internal checklists, inspection results, and client feedback. Everything looked fine, but something felt off. Veritas wasn't big enough yet to have a fully automated monitoring system. A few inspection steps still relied on manual checks, which meant human error was still part of the process. Small, but real. I spoke with the lead engineer, Mariana, a Colombian woman with eyes sharp as glass, but a calm, steady voice. "I think the system has gaps," I told her. She nodded. "I do too, but no one's had time to fix them. Every time I mention it, they say leave it, no issues so far." I smiled. Waiting for a problem usually means it's already too late. I began drafting a proposal to upgrade the inspection system, installing industrial cameras with differential scanning to detect surface flaws invisible to the eye. The cost was minimal, but it would change 3 stages of the production line. Mariana volunteered first to help. She brought 2 others on board. Within a week, I had a small team running pilot tests. On the 8th day, Sandra stopped by the floor, standing behind me as I reviewed the results. "How long to implement this across the plant?" she asked. "3 weeks if no one gets in the way." "You just described why I hired you," she said. "Keep going." I knew she wasn't easy to impress, but she trusted me. And in an environment like that, you work at your best because you don't have to spend half your energy fighting doubt. While I was buried in improvements, the aftershocks from Helix kept spreading. A former coworker texted me. Mark officially resigned. Ryan left too. Heard he's job hunting in Texas. I wrote back, I hope he finds the right place. Not long after, the Seattle Tribune released a follow-up. Helix Unicorp restructures after scandal. Who stayed, who left? The article listed a wave of senior resignations and dismissals. Several major hospitals announced they were switching suppliers. One of them was Veritas. Mariana dropped the newspaper on my desk. You just took your old company's client, she said with a smile. Not mine, I replied. A client who values integrity. A few. Days later, I got a call from a name I hadn't expected. Ryan. Emily, I'm sorry for calling out of the blue, he said. It's fine. How are you holding up? Trying, he said. I just left Helix. After everything, I realized you were right. It just took me a while to see it. I stayed quiet, letting him speak. I'm not proud of how I stayed silent. But if you know anyone looking for someone like me, could you maybe recommend me? You're smart, Ryan. You've learned from this. I'm sure you'll do better next time. Send me your resume. I can't promise anything, but I'll take a look. After that call, I felt lighter. Not because of forgiveness, but because bitterness had finally stopped following me. By the third week, the new inspection system was fully operational. We caught 3 minor defects in 2 days, flaws no human eye would have noticed. Mariana came by my desk with 2 cups of tea. So what now? Higher output, stronger reliability, and maybe, if we're lucky, a little more pride. She raised her cup. Thank you for not choosing silence, Emily. You've changed more than you think. I smiled. I didn't need recognition. I just needed to know it mattered. That evening, Emma and I walked around the lake. She talked about her history essay, then suddenly asked, Do you miss Helix, Mom? I looked at her, then at the rippling water. No, I said. I miss the version of myself I lost while I was there, but now I've found her again. A year later, I returned to Seattle for a short business trip to attend the National Medical Conference. The city was the same, fine rain like silk, the air still carrying the scent of sea salt and roasted coffee. I had been away long enough to look back without the sting. The conference was held in a new glass building on Pine Street, the same area where I'd once attended Helix meetings. When I walked in, a few people recognized me. Some greeted me. Others looked away. That was fine. I hadn't come to be remembered. I'd come to prove that the past no longer held me. After the panel ended, I walked down the hall to get coffee. A voice behind me called out, Emily? Is that you? I turned. Ryan. He looked different. Gone was the polished, eager young man in tailored suits. He wore a simple shirt now, eyes a little tired, but clearer somehow. Hello, Ryan, I said softly. Didn't think I'd see you here. I'm working for a small company in Phoenix now. They handle recycled medical supply chains. Not big, but decent. That's good, I said. Decent matters more than big. He smiled faintly. I owe you thanks. You might not believe it, but after Helix fell apart, I started really studying supply chains, business ethics. I realized the scariest thing isn't losing a job, it's losing yourself. I looked at him for a long moment. Ryan, nobody starts out knowing everything. What matters is knowing when to stop and start learning again. He nodded. I remember the day you left. I thought you'd lost. But now I get it. You just left before the rot reached you. I smiled. Sometimes leaving early is the only way not to become someone else. We talked for a few minutes more. Before we parted, Ryan said, Helix filed for bankruptcy 3 months ago. Mark was sued and lost. He lost everything. I heard he's in Arizona now, teaching freelance business consulting. I didn't feel satisfaction, just release. You know, I said, justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it's just people living with the choices they made. Ryan said nothing, then bowed his head before walking away. I left the conference and followed the same old street that led to the cafe by Lake Union, the one where I'd written my resignation letter years ago. The place hadn't changed. Dark wooden tables, fogged up glass. I ordered a cappuccino and sat by the window, watching the lake ripple under the gray light. My phone buzzed. A message from Grace Lynn, the journalist who had helped me expose it all. Emily, the health department just released their final report. Thanks to your documents, over 1,200 defective devices have been recalled nationwide. You saved thousands of lives. I read the words on the screen. For a moment, all the city noise faded. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just felt peace, a quiet, deep kind of peace, like watching the last storm dissolve at sea. I typed back. I only did what anyone should have done. Outside, the rain began to fall. Again, slow, soft, like the earth breathing. I watched the drops slide down the glass. and thought of Emma, of those who had stood by me, and of those who hadn't. Somehow, everything was finally where it belonged. When I stood to leave, I paused at the door and looked back one last time. A small corner of my heart whispered, "There's no such thing as a perfect ending. Only people brave enough to stay honest in the chaos." I smiled, stepped into the rain. And if you've stayed with me this far, I want to ask you something. Which moment in this story stayed with you the most? Was it when Emily stood up to her boss? When she walked away in the Seattle rain? Or when she realized justice isn't found in verdicts, but in peace? Share your thoughts below. I read everyone because sometimes your words give strength to those still fighting for what's right. And if you believe justice isn't always loud, that quiet courage can be stronger than 1,000 excuses. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story, where what's right still finds its way, even through the dark. Thank you for listening, for staying, and for believing in those who choose what's right, no matter the cost. I'm Emily, and this is how I learned to live honestly again after 7 years of loyalty to the wrong people.